everybody. Welcome back to Black Freethinkers. I totally forgot about the intro, so it's a little bit of a different format. But I'm Dr. J. Bundy. You can find me at Pocket Locker 86. Maya, let the people know where you at, what you're doing.
Hey everybody, my Adkisson at my Adkisson. Come through on Sundays. We have fun over here.
Bad Science Sunday, one of the hottest shows. You know, I was just gonna say that you're competing with things like Sunday Night Football.
No, I'm not.
But I really think Sunday Night Football is competing with you because most of the people in our community don't really care about sports.
They really
And
don't.
they
I
really
remember
don't.
what do you call it? I went live on the night of the Super Bowl, and it was a normal stream. I thought I was going to have like half or even like diminished views, and they're like, "What's on tonight, huh?"
yeah, yeah. But Bad Science Sunday has become destination viewing for everybody in the community. You
Thank
know,
you.
I'm one of the few sports fans that feels even conflicted about this. So make sure you're over at Myers on Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 p.m. Eastern.
9:30. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. All right, y'all. So today we're talking about why do you care so much? And it's something that came up because somebody said that stupid stuff to me. Um, and it really hit me. First off, I was kind of like defensive, put me on the
Right.
defense. Like, well, why are you coming at me? Like, isn't it obvious? Like, I don't think God's real. It's like a pretty big deal. Like, um, but yeah, it made me really kind of think about it and have to try to articulate why I care. And then I thought, that's actually like a good thing to talk about because I think that's something people definitely encounter if you're um, a non-believer, and especially if you identify as a non-believer, because I think even just being willing to say you don't believe in a God or you don't identify as religious or whatever is enough for people to sort of like put you in the vocal atheist category, regardless of how vocal or not vocal you really are. You're kind of, if you're willing to tell people, you must be really out there, like, automatically.
Right, right. Yeah, I hate when you do these things and it's just you and me, and I'm like, I'm not out there like that. Like,
No, so I was going to get you in here, and I was going to get you in here because I think this is a thing with other issues, right? So for me, it's being a non-believer because I think that's super important.
mhm.
But to other people, it might be other issues that we might think of as tied to being a skeptic and a free thinker, trying to see change in society, because
Mhm.
really it is bigger than just the God claim, right? The
Right,
free thinker is like we willing to put everything under the microscope, any and everything.
right.
And so
Yeah,
you do end up caring about a lot of other things, and you might still similarly get this response from the community, right? Like why are you pulling your hair out over,
yeah. Over
whatever it
X, Y, or
is.
Z.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, no, I mean, because like when you said that, like, why do you care? Like, immediately I went political. Um,
Right there. That's where we're going. There you go.
because it was just like I don't know my like I go back and forth with my son a lot. Because he's not interested in it,
Okay.
And I'm like, this directly affects you in everything that you're going through. I don't understand like why it's like, well, everybody seems to hate Trump, so I guess I'm gonna vote for Kamala. I like there's so many reasons why that's you know why you should vote for who you're a specific person this time around. It is more than just everybody around me likes Trump or hates Trump, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I, it's really interesting that millennials, well, I mean, I can't even just put it on one generation, that there's just so many people, so many fence sitters. it really it's really jarring to me that they're just like, oh, I don't know, Trump or Kamala, Trump or like, what do you do? What do you do? What rock do you live under? Do you just like work and sleep and not consume any media? How does this happen?
I don't know. It's kind of terrifying. So I think what's interesting about thinking about somebody like your son is I do think there's an interaction with age,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was uniquely involved in politics. I feel like I was raised in politics because of my
Mm-hmm.
family, so I was like in it, like working in it, and so it was always important to me. And also to me, being politically active was just a way to bond with my father, right? Like talking about politics, that's what we did. So we had, campaigns we worked on and all that type of stuff. And
That's
so
so
that was
cool.
like, yeah, that was just a natural way to talk to him. Things we could both be excited about, knowing the same people, and things being important. So when I'd come visit, I want updates on all the stuff I care about. Um, but I do understand that as people get older, they tend to get less apathetic. They tend to get more into politics. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
when you're young, it's kind of weird to be into politics. And then when you get old, politics is like the default pastime. It's like if you don't find another hobby, you're going to end up watching the news and getting into it's just like the
Yeah.
default when you're so I don't know. There is something about that. But then I wonder if part of it, and it's even because let's be clear, I feel like when people do this, why do you care so much thing, it's really problematic. They may not know it's problematic. They may not be trying to bully you or anything weird like that, but it is a problematic thing for me. Like, because it to me, it comes from a problematic place.
Right, right. I mean, because it's more or less get off my ass. I don't want to stop making me think about stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Um, but yeah,
Which, yeah, no, that's really, for me, like I have bad science Sunday, so like I'm like very concerned about that, and being in HR, just very concerned about like why people do what they do, and how do we make good decisions that are going to affect every. I think almost everything I do in my life is encouraging people to make good decisions, um, and to try to think about the long game. How is this going to affect others? And I don't know, the shortcut where this will suit me right now. I don't want to think about how it could look in the long run. I understand that we're not preparing people to go there. People don't understand like the factors at play for a lot of things. And well, I don't know, I'll tell you, I know we fought a lot on like political strategy. Because it's just like what's the end game? Where do we,
right,
what does this
right.
look like? Um, but I respect you as an intellectual. I really do. And I'm
Same.
probably harder on. I think the reason I fight with you so much is because like I'm harder on you. It's like you're not stupid. You're actually really smart. Like you could do this. Um, there's other people where I don't know. You might see me in the chat, and I'm just like, really? Okay. It's just like it's not even worth
Mm,
having the
mm.
argument, because like I'm not even sure if they're intellectually there. But like when I see people who I'm like, no, you can do this. Like it's like you must do this for mankind. you know it's like
Right.
I need you to think things through, because then you will teach others, and less others for me to have to teach.
So there's so much there. So one thing I was thinking about is this sort of active intellectual cooling. And what I mean by that is people who have put it out there
hmm
that the thing to be is disinterested, the thing to be is dispassionate, the thing to be is not an extremist, not too much, not too hot or too cold about anything. And
Is that
I
a thing?
want Yeah, because I think it's like we see like in the debate culture where it's like the
hmm
calm person is always the most correct one. So I
Okay.
think I think that
I
feeds into this apathy. It's all supposed to be kind of a game. You're not supposed to really go
I
at it like
mean,
you actually have skin in the game. You
right.
know what I mean?
I
Like,
mean, that's we can go into how that's like right wing crap, right? It's easy to do that as a cishet white man when ostensibly you have no skin in the game for anything. You have the luxury of not being able to be too passionate about anything. One, but two, you can kind of sit on those laurels while the women get all hysterical, or the black people get all
Out in
ignorant,
the streets,
or
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
animalistic.
Right,
You
right.
can look at the savages and the I don't know, the women and their feeble mindedness. And see, I'm an intellectual man. I am above all this. When really you're sitting in your comfort. Like I'm not affected. I don't need to get upset because regardless of what happens, there's this myth in their head. I will be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to tell white men often, um, you know, you're not fine. The us versus them was never about color.
Mm,
You, if you were in the 99%, you were assisting and making it about color, but it was never about color. It was always about the oppression of the majority. And I don't, this isn't really making it I know like people talk about eat the rich, and I think it's kind of like, I don't know, this fun thing to say, but I don't think people really understand like the depth of their depravity in this, that
mm.
it's what it's actually about. And we do see the same people clutch their pearls whenever they're being decentered.
Yeah,
And
and I think
then
that that plays a role of it too, because I think that's part of the cooling. That's part of
mhm,
them not, they're not invested in those issues, right? And I
right.
think a lot of
Well, they're
it's
not
so,
invested unless it's about them,
yeah,
or they perceive it to be about them.
yes, it's so deep that like I think, for instance, me in the classroom trying to fight pedagogy fights. Like, let's do what's best for our students. Let's base what we're doing based on the science of learning. Part of the difficulty is part of the old regime, the old way of thinking is tied to the identity of the majority, right? It's primarily white dudes in the institution. They were right, and so they
Yeah.
associate a lot of times new stuff
Mhm.
with DEI. Even got nothing to do with DEI. We just talk about pedagogy.
Oh my
We just talk
God.
about. But part of the reason they don't care about the pedagogy is because, well, y'all say the pedagogy is more equitable and it helps black and brown kids. So now you see it. So now it's all wrapped in the DEI bubble now. So it's just crazy how deep it is. How it's like,
Can you can you kind of help me? What do they think the purpose of DEI is? Or do they think it's just like we need to jump through hoops to be nice to people who are not us? Or do they understand the importance of group cohesion?
no, it's it's subtly the thought of we're tailoring things to inferior students who would not cut it otherwise. But the person that actually fits that profile that they're describing
Mm-hmm.
is all of the students. And so I'm just like, can we do what's best for all of the students? And then like, I'm not interested in what's best for all of the students, because what's best for all of the students also helps these students. And I just can't prioritize. My brain scrambles when you mention these other students. So it's just, it's
So wait, they would have maintained the status quo.
yeah, even though we know
It's not
it's
working.
failing, not working for anybody, not working for, it's
It
not
never
working.
does.
It's not working for
It
anybody.
literally never does. Like that's insane to me.
Yeah, but that's like it's
Well, that's their comfort
really
zone.
it's
Yeah.
really
I
weird.
don't want to have to do anything. I
Yes, and
again,
there's
I
also a bit of like the
totally
I made it
understand.
through. right?
People
I made
hate
it
change.
through. People hate change,
And well,
and
I did it, so they
I
can
did
do
it
it. And,
exactly,
let
exactly,
not,
exactly.
I hate hearing about
So
things
the
like this in
thing,
academia because academics should get it.
no, no, it's the worst, the worst, it's the worst. Um, so so part of the thing too. So you said that it's a right wing thing, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and so I don't know if this is too much, but it's like my frustration at like hearing it out of somebody like your son or hearing it out of somebody like one of my students is like, no, this really especially matters for them, right? But part of, to me, like the cooling is people don't realize that that's a right wing thing.
Hmm.
So then it just becomes popular or it's out there into the sort of
Hmm.
intellectual popular culture. So then you have people buying into the idea, oh, well,
Hmm.
I don't want to be one of those extremist radicals and I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
want
be
this
one of
to,
those
I
woke
don't want to be obsessed
leftists.
with this. What are you saying? You saying I should like read the news? I don't want to be reading the news and, you know, and then also I think what our society does is we all have just enough fat cat privilege to buy into a little bit of that and hope that we can get more, right? And so we are affected, but like you said, you got to think a little bit long term. And most of us can like order a pizza right now if we want to, hit up the homies on the gaming consoles. There's a party going on this weekend. Now, don't get me wrong, we ain't really rich, we ain't really right, we ain't really got our own, and we're not really even moving in that direction. But we got just enough of this material comfort that we
Hmm.
don't feel like we need to worry about it right now, right now. And then that attitude just goes straight through too late, way too late,
Yeah.
way too late.
I'm not going to think about it until I absolutely have to. But yeah, by then, it's like
And people did this with climate change, right? Climate change,
everything,
it
literally
was
everything.
literally everything.
I
Literally
mean,
everything.
I don't know if you noticed, but we no longer have Roe v. Wade. Like, I remember people storming the
Mm.
streets saying this would happen and being told that we were overreacting. Um, but I mean, it's just like, yeah, I think, I don't know. For me, and I know how I got here, and I know that not everybody traveled my road, but for me, it's very important um, that my opinions are grounded in fact. And I feel saddened that I'm a minority there.
Mm.
I'll actually, like, even if I'm like, I know I saw this somewhere, but I don't know where. So I'm just going to take the L until I can corroborate the source. And this happened, God, even 2 weeks ago. My boss was saying, I'm kind of a minority in my workplace where, like, almost everybody's a person of color. We have very few white people,
Okay.
probably kind of all the white people on one hand. Um, so most people were not born here, which means everybody except the Americans are at least bilingual.
Mm.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
there's one guy I work with. I forget where he's from, somewhere in Africa. English was his fourth language. And so my entire kitchen staff, my entire housekeeping staff were all born in Central and South America. Their English is very poor, and at least half of them are finding a friend before they'll like to come to the office so they can have a
Sure.
conversation with me.
Sure. Sure.
And I feel bad because I'm like, holy crap! Like I don't feel like. I mean, it feels like they shouldn't have
To
to.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my not that I'm as far along as I could be, but I'm trying to pick up Spanish phrases, at least enough to get them to, talk to them about payroll. please sign this form, and
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
what's on the form. I transferred a lot of
Mm,
my documents to Spanish just so they could read
mm,
their own offer
mm.
letters,
Yes,
because
yes. That's,
you
that's
know
fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, yeah. Got to do that.
you know
That's awesome.
um things like that. But when I God, like, these are things, like, when I think about DEI, God, and I was going towards something because you said something, but I'm like, when I'm thinking about DEI, I think about things like that, where, oh, that's right. So my boss, I was saying something in Spanish to another worker, and one of the residents um, was asking what we were saying, and I was just like, oh, she is having an issue with the time clock. Very innocuous. Um, and then my boss is like, well, we should, these are healthcare providers, we should have them talk English around the residents. And I'm like, yeah, if you're speaking to an English speaking patient about their care, you should only speak English. However, if I'm folding laundry in the laundry room and Spanish is our primary language, or even if it's not, if I'm with a worker who is more comfortable expressing herself in Spanish and I understand it, why shouldn't they just speak Spanish? He's like, well, it's best practice. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like, I'm just thinking, like, from a DEI standpoint, it's a bad practice. Like, it couldn't possibly be a business best practice if it is contrary to, like, if it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure this isn't lawful. I'm pretty sure we can't require people to speak English in the workplace. Now, again, when you're speaking to a patient about their care and they are an English only speaker, then like, you need to be able to have somebody who can communicate that with them effectively. It's not a law, but certainly a best practice. Like, the patient should be able to understand their care. And I don't know, in healthcare, it might be a thing, but I'm not clinical. I'm legal. So that's my realm. And I ended up, like, he was like arguing with me on it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to shut up. And then I did a Google search and I'm like, oh God, look, this is against Title VII. The EEOC said this is not lawful. We cannot do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
That it is against the like Title VII, something or other. And it was just, I don't know, it's a really long way of saying, I shut up when I don't know my source. And I will go find my source before I will make my point. And if it's something like that, where, we get sued for requiring our non-English speakers to only speak English, yeah, I'm coming back with facts.
Mm, mm.
I really wish more people would do that. So my boss is doubling down. Like, no, it's the best practice. We should start doing this. And with no facts. It's just, well, we did it at my last two jobs. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't have to work at your last two jobs. So if they want to get sued, have at it. We should not do this here. And as long as I'm here, it's not going to happen. And here's why. But like, I say all that to say, just like the two, like, what I see is my boss being the norm. Like, I heard this somewhere and it's been my experience. Therefore, it must be true. And
Yes.
not,
Yes.
me, who I've been in HR for 17 years. I was pretty sure, like, just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's not lawful. But rather than just having an argument where I'm right, no, I'm right, I went and found the source. And not that I am the best practice, but just IMO. I'd like to see more people doing that.
Yeah, and the thing is that's so interesting is that that's how a lot of these people want things to be. They in their head they've decided America's official religion is Christianity, its official language is English, And therefore, what should happen in a professional environment is we get everybody to speak English. And when you don't understand the importance of inclusion and equity, making it so that there is no primacy of my language over yours, um, like you lose that. And to me, that's off the table because it's not even something people are thinking about. But trust me, it's exactly the type of thing where if certain candidates get their way, um,
Yeah, I
that
wouldn't.
type of thing could be easily changed, quick,
I'm
fast, and
really
in a hurry.
shocked that they haven't tried to make English like I don't, to my knowledge at least, there are no bills trying to make English an official language, but that would be popular as shit with their
It
base.
just to me, it's just a thing they haven't stumbled upon to yet as a thing,
Hmm.
but it's pretty clear to me how that would go down, and it's kind of right there. And things go a different
They
way, and you
probably
get other protections.
they probably sadly get a lot of support from the left, or
Probably,
say the
yeah,
left, the corporate centrist.
yeah, um,
Because like I don't know, they for whatever reason, it makes Americans very uncomfortable when people are speaking languages that they don't understand. And I can't express to you um, how relieved people are to be able to speak their native tongue anywhere
mhm,
or to anyone.
mhm.
Just being with friends, like I had a friend. It's probably bad to say, but like I call her an Asian mutt because like she was adopted by two people in Thailand. She was raised in America, but like like as far as we know, she's like from 4 different countries, like surrounding
Um,
like Laos, and yeah, my I don't know. It's been a long day, so I can't remember like what
you're
the
good. You're
surrounding
good.
countries are, but yeah, she speaks. I know she speaks Laotian, and she's familiar. Like she won't speak it, but she can hear or comprehend one of the bordering countries. Um, but because she looks enough like each of those, I guess. And again, I'm backing out. I'm only saying this because I've been like in a mall with her where like people from the different countries will walk up to her, pretend like I'm not there, and just start speaking to her in those tongues. And she's like, no, I only speak X and Z, X and Y. And but it's kind of like that where it's just like people get so excited to see someone who's like them, to be able to like just share in the experience of like their native tongue. Like I mean, and it I don't know. Like one of the things I love is just being able to see people being their like authentic self and just having that joy in their eye. And when I mean, just me saying, hey, just say it in Spanish. If there's a word I don't understand, I'll ask. Like just to look like the relief that they're not like trying to stumble to find words in English, that they can just, like I have this issue and I can be myself. Like, I don't know. For me, I don't know. I really don't understand thinking that people, I don't know, just like little things. Like I remember seeing this woman fly off the handle in a mall because people were speaking Spanish and she just knew that they were talking about her. Like, do you even know these people? Like, what is wrong with you? Just so crazy.
Yeah, and I'm sure they absolutely were not because they don't care.
I don't even know that they knew she was there.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I say all that God, I'm sorry, my meds have worn off if you can't tell. My point though was knowing how, like, that woman. I can't even say that woman. I'm calling that. I mean, I say calling her out, but like I'm thinking about that in particular, just because it's the last time I saw it. But I remember growing up in Illinois, people were like that too. So I know it would be like really popular, and I'm just really shocked that they. Maybe I should shut up before somebody like clips this and sends it to Lindsey Graham. But um, really shocked that they haven't, because they've been all about like, anything that can strip immigrants of their rights or others them, and to where we can do any number of unspeakable things.
So this
And
is another part of the sort of right-wing aspect of it is there's a lot of criticism in the social space that really only flow from right to left.
mhm.
People don't ask right-wingers, why are you guys obsessed with DEI? What do you mean they're transing the dogs? Like, you guys are weird. Like, why are you saying so? Right. So that's the part of what you're saying about it being a right-wing thing. It's like they only
Right.
say that to us.
Mhm.
Why do they ask us why we care so much when clearly we're responding to the obsession with us? And
Mhm.
when somebody said this to me, it reminded me very much of like dealing with race.
Mhm.
I would love to not give a crap about race,
That'd be great.
but I'm Black, so race dominates every
I
day of my
mean,
life. I would
yeah,
love to
yeah. I
not
was just
care.
like, is there a day in life where you don't wake up where you don't have to go somewhere and it's just like, yep, I'm Black. I mean, it's just even little things where, oh, there's a cop behind me. All right. Or, I'm, there's a security guard or whatever. And, do I have to worry about him following me? Because I'm really not in the mood to like deal with this right now. Or,
Right, right.
um, I don't know, this cashier's really mouthy. Like, is she just mouthy, or is there something about me? You never
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
You never know. Um, and to me, it's like, why aren't other people more concerned about addressing the issue? Like, why aren't people more concerned about dealing with racial disparities in healthcare and the economy so that we can shut up about it? Like, shut us up. Make us just go ahead and shut us up. We would love y'all to just and I feel the same way. Like, okay, so you said this thing about truth and facts.
Hmm.
And so I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here, but you'll see
Okay.
how it ties in because it's kind of
I'm all about it.
the flip side to me of why do you care so much
Hmm.
is I shouldn't care more than you do. Uncle Bobby has this thing where he says, if you've got a cholesterol issue and you've got some huge bag of candy and big thing of donuts and you are just absolutely committed to housing all of that right now, I can't be more concerned about your health than you are.
Hmm.
And that does get me. So I do feel the like, why do I care so much? It's like I have my reasons, but at the same time, it's like, why don't y'all care more? Why does it bother me more as a non-believer that I think this stuff's not real? Then you're not concerned about that? Like a lot of people, millions of people walking around don't believe your God's a real thing. You're all like, yeah, well, we walk by faith and not by sight. Oh, okay. Like I don't know what to say. Like that part of it does get me. Like, why do I care more than these people do? But to your point, it really bothers me that
Hmm. That they don't care enough.
they don't care enough, and that what am I doing in a grown ass? Sorry, it's a grown society full of grown people that don't seem to care to distinguish what is actually true versus what is not. And y'all are willing to follow people
But
and
you
give
have
up
to
all your
remember,
money.
it's
Like,
kind
what's
of
going on?
my very long-winded and rambly way of getting to a point, though. You have to remember that they most people have learned to extract truth from their surroundings and not by research.
Mm, mm,
So last night, I think it was
mm.
last night, I was talking about Wikipedia, and how it really pissed me off that people were like, "Oh, Wikipedia, you can just say, let me just for a really long time, and it was driving me nuts. And I was so happy when streamers actually started saying, oh no, Wikipedia is cool, because it's been cool since 2009. Since 2009. I came into the community in 2018. And Wikipedia has been the same the entire time. And it's only been in since maybe like the last 2 years where people were like, oh, okay, maybe I won't maybe Wikipedia can be useful. I'm like, really? It took you 15 years to realize that? Really? I mean, it's just weird to me where, and where like they're not, where people in the skeptic community who value truth so much that they're not even looking at the sources in a simple Google search. Like that really pissed me off. And like it's kind of like, this is why we're here. So there's people aren't, I don't know. I can't say that people aren't committed to truth. I think that the religious, and the reason that I don't harp on it so much, I do believe the religious are committed to truth. I just think that they're taught to seek truth in ways that perhaps you and I that haven't been acceptable for scholars.
Yeah.
And you and I have gone through, you more than me, way more than me. I have a master's degree. It's psychology. It was really more of a research degree. Like, holy hell. So I did a lot of reading. And yeah, they'll throw out a source if they don't like it, or if it's not, or even if it's like a valid source, but it doesn't really fit right in with what you're trying to say. They teach you to be particular and to look for answers and to cite your answers. Like, where did you get that? Like, this is a claim. Where did you get it?
Yeah.
You don't get like, and I know you've felt this. You don't get to make a claim without citing a source. Like, it just doesn't happen.
I've had exams where you, like, on the exam, you have to cite, people don't realize that you have to cite the sources on the exam. You don't get credit for just like describing the history of a theory. You have to like cite the actual papers and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I could fail. Well, a lot of mine was writing, but really easy to fill a paper if you don't have, if you're not even just not having the sources wasn't an option. And then you had to cite them properly.
Yes.
So I don't know, like for people like me and you, it's just like, okay, you don't, for me to say, I'm going to shut up until I remember where that source came from. Like that's just kind of been beaten into me, if you will. Right. And I know that you take that same level of, I don't know, importance into correct sources, or in getting truth from a reliable source, I guess. And we don't have the experience that most people have in the United States.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's been hitting me recently, is that we're all part of a very unique community, and so we're way far out in the sort of type of experience that's common amongst us, but not necessarily outside of the community. And so sometimes when people say stuff to you, you're like, oh, I forget how uninitiated the average person is to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like a lot of it, I see just, it's like, well, what do you think woke actually is? Why are you defining it like this? Well, they've decided that words, based on the way something is used, I'll figure out the definition. There's no reason to bring Google into this. there's no reason for me to pick up a dictionary. There's no need for me to ask at all. I can deduce from what's going on that what definitions are, how things should work. And if you don't like it, it's just your opinion. And, I don't know, it's just this weird area where like facts are what confirms my opinion. I guess is the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of that. Part of my thing is I do think one, I think we tell people we tell too many people that they're smart. Um, I think that's like a real problem. I think people have a very overinflated sense of their own intelligence. And I don't mean that to be insulting, but I mean that in a way that it doesn't help us because
Mm-hmm.
people need to be humble. They need to realize, I don't know about a goddamn thing. Like, and they need that sort of like, oh, I really do need to like rely on people. Another part of it is I think our education is missing it's missing like the meta, like it's missing how do you learn about learning, like today with my students I showed them a video from an active learning training course I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it because I'm like, I know some of you don't like active learning, you don't understand why we do it instead of me lecturing, and maybe you don't
So they
like
just want
that. You
to.
might not like that you
Are they
feel like you're
under?
teaching yourself.
Are they
Yes,
undergrad?
they're undergrads, and so
Okay.
sometimes
They're
like
probably just getting used to it then.
y-
They've probably their entire life had to sit down, take a piece of paper, listen to what the teacher said. Okay, now I'm going to give you a piece of paper, regurgitate what I just said.
yeah, so they don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
um and also they don't know what to expect, the results.
Right.
So like I show them this because the presenter is basically summarizing the value of active learning, what we've learned from the research, like why it's more effective, what the activities are. So I'm showing this, I'm going, look, see, I'm not doing this just, to torture you or whatever, or I'm not just doing this because I don't want to teach lecture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my point is that was unheard of. I'm sure that was the first time any instructor they've ever had has done something like that. And it's probably the first time anybody in our department's ever done something like that. We don't tell students what we know about their learning. I always say we treat it like a magic trick. We treat it like if
Mm-hmm.
I tell you why I have you doing what I have you doing, it's somehow going to ruin the magic trick. So, and so I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to take you behind the curtain so that you understand the pedagogy behind what I'm doing in the classroom. But my point is, we don't do that. That's not part of the education process. We don't teach people about learning. And so we definitely don't teach them things about critical thinking. We don't teach them. There's no course on that. So we sort of do these weird content areas, and
Mm-hmm.
we hope and expect that they'll somehow pick up the sort of critical thinking skills and all of that along the way. But they don't. I
No.
can tell you for sure they get to college and they don't have a clue. You guys would be miffed by just how much college students aren't ready for college. They're like not they don't have the study habits that they need to like get through their
Yeah.
basic courses. Um, and so it's like it's in a real sense, I think it's like it's not their fault. They've
We've been
excelled to this point in their life
right.
without those skills.
No, my daughter said the same thing where she was in half of her classes were AP in high school, and she got to senior year, and the department head was teaching her English class, and she was just shocked that the AP class didn't know like basic whatever, and they were like, nobody's ever mentioned this to us. Like you may as well be explaining in a different language,
Right.
and it was frustrating because in her head they should be doing, at a college level AP, you should not college, high school level senior AP should be college. Like you should feel like you're teaching college students, and they're like, she's saying, these are things you should have learned sophomore year in high school, and she was like, I'm gonna have to like get the department heads together and like revamp um, what we're doing for AP because it was AP,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be college course level, right?
Yeah.
And to have been taking AP classes for most of her high school career to not at a senior level been able to do freshman work, like um, it was
Yeah.
just
They're
hurting.
shocked.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was shocked as a parent
Yeah.
when she was
Yeah.
explaining it to me. So again, my kids, well, my son had all honors, and then my daughter, like for me, I was like you, went to Catholic school. Like I was actually taught by nuns. They don't play.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Like, you will learn, or the teacher will ridicule you in front of your peers.
Yeah.
And if you go home, your parents will be like, well, why did the teacher, you'll get in trouble because like, why did the teacher have to ridicule you for not doing what you were supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like it just, there wasn't any of this like kids glove stuff. Like there was no sinking, there was only swimming. And you swim well, or
Yeah.
else like
Yeah.
that's how
That's
I was
it.
trained.
Yeah.
And it's a very different world today. Even talking to teachers who have been teaching for like a couple of decades, they're like, yeah,
So
the parents
now,
are different.
yeah.
So like the expectations in the students, um, it's different because I can't. I mean, to the point where they're not even getting homework. Like in Baltimore City and County, they're not even sending them home with homework anymore because they won't do it and they can't enforce it. And what are you going to do? Fail the whole school?
that's what you get to. You get to like there's such a systematic program wide thing. It's like, what are you gonna do? Because if you keep it the way it is, literally just most students are gonna fail, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't you just can't fail the entire program. Like, um, and so it's a real issue, and the parents are an interesting thing too because the parents are millennials. So in one sense, it's hard. I always say it's harder to lie to kids these days, not just because the kids have smartphones in their pockets, but because the their parents grew up with the internet. So there's a different sort of ubiquity
Mm-hmm.
um, to it there. But also the parents being millennials, a lot of these standards and things. But the thing I was getting at is there's a lot of adults now, grown out of the system, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
who have never gone through that experience where somebody in a position of authority over them tells them they didn't learn well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's a problem. Like when a lot of times when I see like apologists and people like that, I just wish like somebody needed to have them in school where they do that and they go, well, I don't care that you cited William Lane Craig. He's a bad source. He's like that's a bad source. So, yeah, you cited a source, but that's a bad source. No, you don't get credit
Right.
for that. Like, oh yeah, you cited this creation. That's terrible. What are you doing? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't get that. And so they think I found a source, I looked it up. That's just as good as the other kid found a source, found a site, looked it up.
Right.
And now there's nobody in that position to make there be consequences. The real part about education, it's why the grades are so important. I hate grading, but the grades are really important because that's where the accountability comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now the debate culture, the political sphere, it's all about winning and back and forth, and you don't really get correctness is not necessarily stressed, right? And there's not a lot of consequences directly for not being correct. But yeah, that definitely frustrates me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I remember in communications, there was a guy that when you had to take Com 101, right?
Yeah.
Where speech, and it's just like a series of speeches that you have to give in front of your whole class, and it's kind of it's almost like a one-sided debate where you have to do that. You have to make a compelling case, and you have to cite your sources and da 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 da. And I remember me and this other guy both got the same grade on the death penalty, even though we both had like opposite um,
Stances.
facts,
Yeah.
opposite stances, and I'm like, okay, it's either more expensive or it's less expensive for a state to have um, death row
Mm,
inmates. Both can't be true.
right.
How do we both get the same grade on this paper?
Right. Right.
I mean, just I don't know. When you said that, it always
Yeah, no,
that one that one
that's a
kicks.
great example. That's actually like a perfect example of how it should not be. And now it's like, oh, well, you both sounded strong and you used arguments to support, and it doesn't matter who actually based theirs
Yeah, it
in
doesn't matter who
facts or
was
not.
right. No one walked away understanding like what was right. Like you get these two like completely opposing views that are supposed to be based in fact. And I for the life of me, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure he like cited his sources, and I probably didn't even know my own at that time. It I don't know. It's just so crazy. The thing I think that bothered me in college that I felt like even just coming into like the debate community online was that I didn't understand what a decent source was. Like, and I was like 35. And that bothered me because what we had was we had computers and all that, but most people didn't really have computers in the dorm. These huge libraries, and the whole first floor was just computers. And part of in the computers, every computer was a course catalog. So you got all the scholarly, journal articles from I don't know how far back they went. Depending on what class you're in, they would tell you, don't go back any further than X year. So science would be different than psychology,
Sure,
would be
sure,
different
sure.
than business, and so on and so forth. But um, everything in that I forget what it was called, but everything in that
Database.
database, yeah, were valid. So I knew that I was fine with my sources, and I don't recall ever going outside of the database because I knew that everything in the database was going to be fine, and I didn't have to worry about it. But I never learned how to find, how to source decent sources, like decent or like what's a good source versus a bad source. I never learned that in
Yeah,
college,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
got a
You should.
master's degree. Like,
Yeah,
and I kind of, I mean, I understand when I mean, it makes it a lot easier on the teacher, but I felt let down by that. And I know that there's probably a lot of people that graduated around me that are just like wandering around the world that still don't understand that why is Fox News worse than,
exactly. That's because it should be
AP
part of your
News?
grade where you're actually getting graded on the sources. This one, oh, this comes from an appropriate journal in the right field. Um, Bonus points if it's high impact, right? So that's the student who's citing science and nature, and or even just something like helping students understand um, the Journal of Psychology and Family Development is considered a scholarly source of peer-reviewed literature.
Mm-hmm.
Psychology Today is a popular
Pop sci.
magazine
Yeah.
based on psychology that will quite often cite good
Yeah.
science and get it quite right. But you want your students to understand when you're writing a scholarly paper, you want to go to primary
Right.
sources and
Yeah.
understand why that's considered different than what's in
Yeah.
psychology
And
today.
Psychology Today gets a bad rap. I think
Oh,
it's
of course.
great.
That's why I used it, because I knew.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. I love Psychology Today. I read it, but I always understood.
What it was.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's just okay. He's going to read through all of that and give me the gist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not, I mean, not that I need it, but like psychology is a lot of stats, right? And it takes, if I'm just trying to figure out the what the gist of it is,
Yeah.
especially if it's not in my field,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, they did this, cool. I'm not necessarily trying to read through 8 pages of stats
Yeah,
and
there's a reason you shouldn't go to the primary sources in all cases, especially if you're starting a project. You would start with you would start with
mhm,
like scientific journalism, because that gives you like a guide to where to go
mhm,
next. And yeah, and you want to teach students how to read papers, for instance, so that they don't get
right.
caught up in 8 pages of statistics, which
No,
sometimes
my
happens.
I
Yeah.
that yeah, that was not an option. Like avoiding that was not an option. We were only allowed to cite, well, obviously, at least there was that. We were only allowed to cite primary
Yeah,
sources.
because you're only that's why they have you stuck in the database. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
we had SPS, and we had to, there's a lot of times when we had to make our own, stats, and you had to be able to read it, and you had to understand what was statistically significant and da 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 da.
Exactly. There
And
we go.
it's, if I am questioning, I'll go to a primary source now if I'm questioning, like, how did they get there? Because you're saying this, like it seemed like the conclusion seems like a non sequitur. Like what led them to this? And so, I mean, I still know how to read, but which you'd almost have to go to college to do. read,
Yeah.
read those
Yeah.
types of papers. Um,
Farron, so
I'm
if there was
sorry.
a mandatory high school class on critical thinking, how to evaluate sources would and should be in that class. Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, but like there's not like I don't know. I think people think that there's like a class you can have that's just critical thinking, and it would not be helpful. Um, I think you really need to imbue each subject with a form of critical thinking. And
I think I'm with you there, although I would like there to be a class that involves like the same thing I'm looking for now, which is like study skills
mhm,
and stuff like that, and like
you can get that in
teaching more the
English.
science of learning. And I
I
think
got
you
all
could
that in English,
and I think you could
honestly.
put a lot of that critical thinking stuff in there. You'd also
Like,
probably put a bunch of logic stuff
right.
and
Well, yeah.
yeah.
And logic, I mean, yeah, logic obviously is its own field. But when we're talking about a critical, I mean, just a class on critical thinking, I don't know that. Okay. So, for instance, and when I grew up in Illinois, you had to have a econ 101, and like everybody had to have it. And you, it was supposed to help get people to like be financially minded. And it, I think that people in Illinois are about as financially minded as people in any other state, because if you don't have to work with it, you just pass the test and you lose it.
Mm.
Um, and it's the same thing with critical thinking. Like, I mean, we can talk about, like, if your freshman year you had to talk about, well, what's a proper source and da 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 da. I think that we now would be able to meaningfully understand what's going on. But for a high school freshman who isn't thinking about things that way, I think they're going to like pass a test, and they're not going to know how to work with it in the world. And it's just going to kind of go away, just like, financial classes. I think that if you want people to think critically, um, you do something, and I think, I mean, it's not like classes don't math. Critical thinking is all of those word problems that we hated, science, for science it's lab, where you have to go in and, okay, this is what they did, you do the same thing. Here's the
Yeah, so
recipe,
it would have
you
to be
know.
situated. I'd have to do it like situated with like experiential
Hmm.
learning and thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
things going on in the world. So I don't know. I'd make it put it into like a social studies class.
Hmm.
And
You can put critical thinking into every class, but it's got to be intentional and purposeful. And what we have right now are, an empire of teachers teaching to pass a test. I mean, yeah, teaching for kids to pass their
standardized
those
test. Yeah.
standardized required tests, so that the school doesn't lose funding. And I think it's been a disservice to the kids.
Oh, this might be interesting. PC dropped a link about evaluating sources. Check that out.
Yeah, and that's the
So
other thing. Like, I don't know how you fill up a whole year of a class with, here's how to critically think.
yeah, I don't know. Somebody needs to figure it out though, because we're producing a lot of students that are,
But we're talking about kids, so they need to work with it. It's the
yeah.
only way to get it into like long-term memory, because what we know about kids is that they cram and they pass and then it goes away. Like, what if you're going to get somebody to actually, like, I don't know, retain the knowledge? um they're going to have to like do it hands on, and it's going to have to be repeated.
So this is an interesting point. Shimami says if a kid doesn't have critical thinking skills about the high school, they may have a hard time in life. So I think that's a good point.
I think
So here's my
most
thing.
adults, I would say most adults don't have critical thinking skills.
I would agree, and I also think most adults have a hard time because I mean life is no joke. But this is one of the motivators for me
We don't give kids
to.
critical thinking skills. Parents, they see their kids having a hard time and they're like, oh, this is an easy solution. I'll just do it because it's easier for me to do it myself. Teachers are like, you need to pass this test. Here's what you need to do. We don't give kids critical thinking skills. I mean, like, if it happens, it's because like a parent understood what it was and like intentionally instilled it in their children. It is not something it's not systemic.
So Sumami said we already put too much responsibility on teachers. Parents need to actually teach their kids critical thinking skills before they
Parents
hit
don't have it.
16, 17 years. I was
Parents
gonna
don't
say
have it. And we
Sumami.
don't put too much responsibility on teachers.
Sumami, I'm not putting anything on parents. I'm having a hard time with teachers. Parents ain't even in the room.
I mean, the thing is,
Parents are the problem with their
yeah,
kids not knowing critical
yeah,
thinking. Parents are
yeah.
the reason. All right, so let me get this in here real quick, which is just because it ties to the why I care so much, particularly in my case about religion. I think, especially as an educator, I think religions are not just, especially the way they're practiced in this country right now, they're not just they're not just bad on education. They're not just discouraging students from education. They're actively working against education, and it's
Hmm.
very frustrating.
Hmm.
It's even a problem like at like my university because they want to put their Catholic little grubby paws all over everything. And I'm like, you could do that wherever you feel the need to, but you can't do that here in science. Because I take them in science class, I teach them science, I teach them evolution is the basis of biology, you evolved, religion is not how you learn about the world, and then you wanna tell them about using the creator to find your identity and purpose over there over on the other side of campus. On the other side. because, like, it's just so because I feel like again, like you're confusing them. You're This is conflicting messaging. I'm not down with
Right,
conflicting messaging.
right.
Like and it's so active. It's like they feel threatened
Hmm.
by what people learn. So
Hmm.
they really don't like learning. And they would
Right,
rather fill
right.
your mind with a bunch of other stuff that's not learning, and then really if they could really get their way, you would just not be that interested in anything else, right? You would just be, oh my goodness, I'm just gonna they want dedicate your whole life and do so for me that's a big part of the why I care because
Yeah, no, parents will like with sex ed, and I don't have any data to support this, but I'm pretty sure that a majority, like a huge reason that parents in red states don't want their kids to know about sex ed is because they don't want to have to deal with the uncomfortable questions that arise with it.
Right.
So no, you just don't need to know anything about it because I don't want to have to talk about sex. I don't like talking about it with my partner. I shouldn't have to be expected to talk about it with my kid.
Right.
um so let's just keep the kids stupid so that I can remain comfortable.
Yeah.
um
And so that's a big part of the why I care. They're using this to real, and we can't just keep going through stupid generation after stupid generation after stupid generation. It's really a problem. So for me, I
mhm,
start with like they are constantly on the wrong side of history.
mhm.
Women's issues, race issues, DEI issues, LGBTQ issues, public health issues, whatever it is. And every time we ask them why, they tell me it's God. That's why I care so much. That's why I care so much. If y'all if that wasn't the case, right? Why are you a Trump supporter? God. Why do you treat your wife that way? God. Why are you harassing that gay person? God. Why didn't you take the vaccine? God. Okay, then I
I
guess
hear
I guess
you.
I got to deal with God. Yeah, I guess me and this guy really need to square up because he's a problem. Um,
I mean, and
but that's just me. I'm not
it's really
speaking for the
funny
panel.
because I hear you. I understand it's what they say. um you have to remember a lot of people are really just part of a cult that are following their pastor's wishes, um, more than an actual God.
Mm,
We see this a
mm,
lot with people, because I don't know. I've really been going down the whole rabbit hole of like, why do like the conspiracy theory mindset, right? And also the Trump supporter mindset, which I'm not altogether sure those are distinct.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, they're intertwined.
I mean, because when you read about one, it's almost like you're reading about. I mean, they look insanely. They're
Yeah,
very very close. Um, but it's you have this charismatic leader saying drink this Kool-Aid, and they don't think. They're saying, well, God wants me to do it. Why do you believe that? Well, my pastor. I'm part of a flock led by my pastor. My pastor said it, and I trust my pastor, so therefore God. And if
yeah,
like
yeah.
honestly, if you I understand you kind of like hear God, see red, but if you actually went through the conversation about where they were getting their information, like this isn't in the nothing they're saying is in the Bible, none of
Mm,
it. So
mm.
why do you believe that? Where did you hear it? I'm betting it was at church.
See, that's part of the thing I think is going on here because I think you're right about that. And matter of fact, that's been more my approach lately is to really follow whatever they present me. Where did like literally where did you get that from? Show me what website you got that from, and then try to but it ultimately goes back to not being able to have critical thinking skills and
Mm-hmm.
not being able to
Yes,
evaluate
yes.
the quality of a source. And again, that ties back to my thing is I don't know what to do if I care about that more than you do.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
if it never clicks to you, oh, that pastor might have a motivated reason for keeping me in this flock.
that yeah, okay, but you're fighting other things there too, which um, due to everything they've ever heard, there is a man in the sky that is like looking for any reason to set them on fire for all of eternity if you question him at all. So I
That's a
can't
good point. It's a good
I
point.
can't question. Like, so all the pastor has to do is say, well, God said. And at that point, I must turn my critical thinking off.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is actually what the hurdle is there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a big hurdle. And I'm starting to feel that like I definitely can't carry it by myself, but I'm just
No.
realizing I'm willing to go the extra mile for people who I think are at least feeling their way around the perimeter. Because what
Yeah.
motivated me to start this was people who were trying to get out. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm more
Well, that's good
motivated with
though.
people
That's
who
good.
are
Work with
trying to
them.
get out,
You can work
yeah,
with those
than the
people
people
though.
who are the pulling out. Like I can't pull
Right.
you. You can, if I again, I can't care more about your diabetes than you do. If you gonna keep filling your intellectual mind up with junk food, and that's your that's that's what works for you.
Can I just want to clear up a couple of things
Sure.
because I don't want Sumami to think that I didn't hear her. Yeah, I'm not trying to put more on the teachers. What I want is restructuring of education. So, when I'm saying I don't think it's putting adding critical thinking is too much for teachers. I think it's actually the whole point of education, honestly. So, if it's not too much to say, hey, instead of giving kids flashcards, can you give them well, I mean, yeah, still they need to learn the math problems, but also they need to use the math problems. So let's give them word problems, or hey, once kids stop, or kids do need to read about the science in the book, but once they're done reading about the science, they actually need to go into a lab and do the science, or you know whether it's a logic class or communication class, or whether it's like I was in the sixth grade when we had to read oh god, what's the one where Atticus Finch, Scout, and oh my god, I can't think of anything
Like
today.
Tom Sawyer or something like
No,
that. No.
no, was it Not A Time to Kill?
Oh, To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird. Thank you. Yeah, we read that, and my teacher, once we read it, like, so we went through each chapter, and we did there were questions, and so the questions were meant to be thought provoking, and so we had to think about, oh, what would this look like? This, what would this look like? That, and so at the end of the book, our job was to write a final chapter, and or epilogue or whatever. And what do you think that happened after this, or how do you think this would have affected Scout in X, Y, or Z way? I can't remember what the question was. It's fifth grade, but like these are critical thinking tools, right? And it's not extra for the teacher; it's part of the curriculum. And it just, instead of saying, okay, doily, what do you call it? Saucer, teacup, spoon. We say, you know, what is the moral of the story, or what do you think the author is trying to convey when, by doing X, Y, or Z? Like, you're not teaching to a thing. You're actually trying to instill critical thought.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all I'm saying with that.
yeah. And to me, you get a lot of that with active learning. The
Right,
other, the
right.
other,
Yes.
the other thing.
Learning needs to be active. You need to prompt the kid and get them to use the brain. It's not just me talking to you, giving you a piece of paper and you telling me what I said. We need more than that. That's how you get critical thinking. And I don't think it's doing too much for the teacher. I think there's a lot of teachers, and we see it in schools abroad, where like
Yeah, and it would
this is
be,
part of the curriculum.
and I do think good parents should take an active role in their children's education. And I think my parents definitely were the difference makers in my academic trajectory. I just don't trust parents.
No,
It's
yeah,
just as
no.
an
I mean, because
educator,
because
we
people
got
are
to take care of some things in the
right.
system to
People
make
are
a common
stupid
standard.
and they
Because
can't be
oh my
smart
god, these
on.
parents are
Yeah,
terrible.
no, people are stupid, and I don't know. It's
Also,
just
I'll be
like
honest with you. I think parents have too much rights. They have too many rights in our country.
too many rights.
No, just in the sense of like when it comes to something like education,
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't get to write the curriculum. I'll give you
under a
that.
certain age, we treat children like property. And
Yeah, no, it's
if your
almost
parents
exclusively.
want
Yeah.
to send you to a private school, literally so you don't learn. They can literally be like, I don't want you learning evolution. I don't want you learning sex ed. I don't want you learning all this other stuff. They can send you to the worst school possible or no
Hmm.
school at all.
Hmm.
And there's like literally nothing we can do about that because you're. So I just think if you get them into anything public school system or even
Hmm.
adjacent, like this, the state regulates it somehow, right? That's where we've got to try to grab the most we can. My other thing is, I think though we need to restructure education a bit, and it needs to be less focused on subjects. This idea that every day you need science, social studies, math, English, gym, art, like I think we can just throw some other stuff in there. And I think even I'm even cool with it being like an auxiliary period and you throw a whole bunch of stuff in there. But I think this is where you could get more instruction in critical thinking, get more stuff in research skills, get more stuff in just better study habits, social skills. I'm always complaining students don't know social skills. I'm always trying to get my students to meet each other. I literally give them time and I instruct them to exchange contact information. Because if I don't, they won't. And if they don't, then they won't be able to call their classmates to help study. So like just literally like and I had another class and I gave them practice approaching each other. I was like, come on, y'all are in college. You should be wanting to make friends. Like, and so we're gonna practice introducing yourself to somebody new. Like you'd be amazed how many kids are terrified of the idea of meeting one of their peers.
That's been and social psychology has been having a field day because I think around 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there, it like the numbers just tanked, like their social skills for children, and it's been like an uphill fight. And I mean, everybody seems to be convinced that it has something to do with like electronics or social media or something, but exactly I'm not seeing a lot of studies on what
to what degree
to what degree that anything had anything. I don't know, it's not really there's not like studies. It just kind of feels like a bunch of people
I think part of it was just before we had to do certain things. Like I'll give you a big difference now. I heard just talking to other faculty members who are parents. Kids don't want to go to dances anymore. They're terrified of the dance.
Yeah, social. Anything social.
For us, the dance was hey. We don't get a lot of nights to cut loose. So dances, you had to go to the dance, and you wanted to have a date, and that was a big thing. So it's going crazy. I'm like, you're allowed to dance with girls at the dance. You're allowed to touch girls in school at the dance. Y'all don't want to go to the what's wrong with these kids?
No, they're like afraid to talk. I've never seen anything like it.
It's insane to me.
I mean, I remember like even this, like a lot of the kids today are more socially awkward than the socially awkward kids that we knew. Like,
yes,
even the biggest nerd, like you think growing up, like even the biggest nerd had friends. There were people they could talk to. They weren't afraid to talk. They were just, for whatever reason, they didn't fit in.
Sure.
There was always like that click. And it's like now, like everybody's, I don't know. It's weird. I'm not really sure what's going on.
I think a lot of people are doing, in a sense, maybe what we're doing. They have their own communities that they've made online. Maybe they're gaming friends or, just different groups that they're a part of. And I think that having that alternative, whereas like we didn't have as much of that. So there was a certain amount of going along to get along that everybody had to do, because you couldn't just go make some other group of friends or, not have any friends in your school or whatever like that. And so even the most socially awkward kid had to do enough to get by. And now I think students just have real alternatives, and those skills have atrophied because they're just not using them.
And I mean, the problem is we're talking about a group that isn't necessarily able to speak for themselves with the language that is needed to coin the generation. I think that within probably the next 10 years, we'll be able to look back and somebody will be able to will have gone through, the education and be able to say, okay, here's what happened with us. But I mean, I guess it's more of a hope, because it's also, everything is normal to you. So there's nothing to say, well, it used to be like this and now it's like that. And having lived through it, I can say that this is where the breakdown was because
Right.
because of your vantage point, you know?
Sure.
So I don't know, but I know that right now I would love for it to be the way that you're saying it, where it's like, okay, I'm just not finding community IRL. I'm finding it online, which is healthy. And the reason that it's such a huge that psychologists are freaking out about it is because we're social creatures, and you don't want to see a huge societal upset, which is what you would expect if there are a bunch of people who are not getting their social needs met. That just won't end well. We don't know what would happen in that situation, and I think they're trying to figure out what it is so that we can.
AR asked, do teens still meet up at the mall? Nah, when I go
No.
to the mall, I don't see
What's
them.
yeah, like
What's a
Craig said, what's a
mall?
mall? All the malls are being
What's
shut
a
down.
mall?
All
Yeah,
the
a lot of
yeah.
malls are going out of business.
There's a man on YouTube, there are Dead Mall series where a lot of malls have been torn down
and again,
in favor of like the outdoor mall is really popular now, but outdoor malls aren't a hangout spot.
And again, I'm telling on myself, but I used to go to the mall just to try to meet young ladies.
Same.
Just
but
to
you did.
just try to.
I mean, young ladies, but it's where
it was where you.
Saturday you couldn't go to school, so you would find a place where all the other teenagers were, so that you could get that social fix.
Yeah, especially like for me, if you wanted to, I went to small Catholic school, right? So social options, I was social, but options were still very limited. And so if you wanted to meet people outside of your school, outside of that social circle, you either had to like get invited, oh, we hanging out with some friends from this other school, come to this party or whatever, or you had to take yourself to somewhere like the mall and try to meet some people. And so it's crazy. I've gone to a mall recently, like when I was traveling, I was in Canada, I went to a mall and I was like, oh, I would never do cold approaches in a mall now. You would be first off, there's security. You would stick out like a store thumb, like who's this random person walking up to strangers trying to talk to them, and you have the security on you. You can make about 2 approaches for security's following you. Third, whatever. Come on, get out of here. So it's and honestly, I think that's kind of okay, right? It's part of what we've done is we've tried to say, like, we want society to be a little bit safer. We don't want people being harassed.
Right.
It's not really appropriate to just be approaching people any old type of way in any old kind of place. But when you do remove so many of those places, it becomes hard to find a safe place that isn't an online app to even do those things. Like I remember feeling like this, like when I played at a church as an atheist even. One of the things that was crazy was I would spend a lot of time with everybody. Like we have a party, I'm gonna talk to the guys or whatever, but I'm gonna go sit with the girls and talk to them or whatever. And now most of them are students at Michigan, like they're students at the school I work at. I'm just chilling, right? But they will be bugging out, and like all the adults and all the other guys, they would be like watching me, and they would be so bad, like, oh my God, I don't know how you do that. You just like host a table full of girls. And I would feel so bad for them because I'm like, y'all are all single young adults in the same damn church, and you won't mingle. If you ain't gonna mingle with the cute girls that go to your church, what are you doing?
That is kind of weird.
You don't even need something to think. You just walk over and ask them if they go into Bible study. Like I don't know. Like this should be so easy. And I was like, this is crazy. So literally, you're not supposed to talk to your classmates. Don't hit on people at work. Now you're not socializing at church. Oh, it's tough.
Please don't hit on people at work. It just makes my job so much easier.
Don't. Yeah, see.
But in church,
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
No, there have been no lawsuits that I know of, at least. I don't know. But I mean, I think it's kind of expected at church. I remember there would be guys. I remember specifically when there would be guys that would come in just to like find a wife and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Looking for a good woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Go to church on
exactly.
Sunday,
So
find me
yeah,
a good
yeah. So if you're
woman.
looking,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
tired of the,
Now you know
whatever.
what you're really looking for.
Where do
What
you
you're really
go to
looking
get a good
for,
girl? You go to church.
Maya, what
And
you're really looking for is you're hoping you see one that you also saw last night in the club. That's when you. Oh, she was in the
oh
club, and she.
god.
Okay. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna see her.
No, I was at one of those churches where you weren't allowed to, they
You
talk
shouldn't do
about you
that.
badly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Aunt Gier wanted to know if Claire's was the place to be in my friend group. I don't know. As a
Spencer's.
teenagers, I we always went in Claire's, we always went in Spencer's. There was a couple of other places, but you couldn't stay there for long because you were definitely being watched, and that wasn't even a color thing. That was like a teenager thing.
Teenager. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, they did the same thing, the white girls that they did to black girls.
yeah,
It's too many
yeah.
teens in here. I remember seeing, if there's more than 3 people in here, well, 3 teens, no more than 3 teens at a time. And they'd have those posted outside of it was,
Oh
without an
wow,
adult.
it was really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So, most of the time, like arcades used to be a thing.
Yep, the arcade for sure.
And yeah, there's a lot of public areas. There was the food court, it's kind of where we hung out. But
Arcades are kind of dead these days.
I
I
don't
went to
know.
a
I mean, can
big
you find
arcade.
one?
Hardly
The-
like I was in Atlantic City. I saw an
Okay, I was going to
arcade,
say the only
like in
time I
a
saw one,
casino or resort. Yeah,
Ocean City has a huge
yeah.
arcade, and a lot of the throwback games, that you wouldn't really go into like well, say a store to buy, but I think even GameStop is kind of going the way of the dodo.
So it's funny. This kind of ties like to our last episode. Our last episode was about like how do you find IRL community as a non-believer.
Hmm.
It's just hard to find IRL community. Period.
I mean, it really is. And I really do like the internet because I'm finding more. I don't know. I really did feel like an enigma, and I felt like I would tolerate people, and IRL people drain me because I feel
Mhm.
like I have to work harder to, I don't know, talk to them, and it's just so effortless here. But you go online, you find your tribe, you kind of build your little database, and those, you hang with those people, and you feel like a normal person,
So
and
I
it
do.
makes you feel like you don't have to put up with
Yes. So
you know
I don't want to crap on that. Like I do think finding community online is great. I think it's for me it was like life saving. Or
Mhm.
like certainly life changing. I just think we are limited by circumstance. I feel
Yeah.
like based on where I live, where I
Mhm.
work, it's very hard for me to meet like-minded people.
Yeah, I mean, where are they? I mean,
Yeah.
it's easier. Like we almost kind of broadcast ourselves online. It's really hard to find that. I mean, you could be standing next to somebody in the grocery store that's like-minded, but like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really do appreciate the when there's like a, what do you call it? Like a big like atheist meeting group gathering for the weekend or whatever happens.
Yeah, I need to start going to some of those.
Yeah. Because I mean, we see and talk to one another online, but again, very social creatures that I don't know. I think even for those of us who feel very introverted and um very antisocial usually, still crave that physical, like I just want to shake your hand, I want to hug you, I want to, sit next to you, share a beer, share a beer,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah,
drink a
yeah,
beer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, how do we get off this far off topic? What were we talking about?
Why do you care so much?
Yeah.
So tell me
We can,
this, Maya. What are your why do you care so much issues? If I'm your family member or one of your girlfriends,
mhm.
what gets you fired up that I'm just like I don't understand why you
um,
care. Why are you like this?
I no, I wonder that too. And it's just like really important to me that people that I know aren't stupid. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, if I like you, that people know, you're, like there's a part of you where it's like, that's Maya's friend. Like, God, Maya's stupid friends. And like, that can't happen. Like you can't be my friend and be stupid too. Like like
Mhm.
that, it bothers me. Um, and so like when I was saying earlier, like I'm harder on you because like you get it, like but it's also like, I mean, I don't know that there's anybody that even before we started doing this, like we were linked, right? Like
Mm.
I think that if you were doing something crazy, I'd start getting DMs. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, for sure, for sure, for
So
sure.
it's like, don't make people DM me. Just don't be crazy. Don't be stupid. Just just do the thing. Like, God, think about other people. But I mean, the other thing is like, it's the whole like, I want people to be a good steward of the earth because there are things that we're doing that have consequences long term. And selfishness, I don't know, just seems to be a big pet peeve for me. Um,
Mm.
for like, I remember the first, like back in 2016, where people would say things like, well, I don't have kids. And, I'm going to vote for Trump because I think it'll be funny. And I just wanted to jump through the screen and strangle him. It like this isn't funny. Actions have
Yeah.
consequences,
Mhm.
and I think that people will do silly things thinking that it's not going to have an effect, and then hide behind, well, I didn't know, when the thing that people told them would happen does. And it's like, well, you didn't have a crystal ball, you didn't know. Clearly, I did. You don't know what I have. So um why would you believe Trump? Like that didn't make sense either. So I mean, it's just, I don't know, just like wild stuff, like when bad things happen that people try to hide behind their ignorance. And it's like wanting to have your cake and eat it too, and that bothers me. I feel like we should, and I understand this is like part of the latent Christianity, where I didn't get the white Jesus and we have to hate the blacks. What I got was be a good steward of your time, your money, your body, your things, the earth. God gave us the earth. Be a good steward of it. Like, I really did have like the Christianity where, yeah, there's some bitches, but it was, um, there really were people that were trying to help you be your best self. And like these are parts that I kept. So Maya wants friends IRL so she can strangle you for voting for Trump.
So so for me, like,
No, it's just easier if there are no witnesses.
for me, it starts with religion, I guess, is that thing, that people say that to me the most about, certainly. For me, it's just I think it's really bad. And I have two things. I always say there's two things for me. One is it's not true. And it baffles me that people can't even intelligently reflect that opinion. I used to always say my goal with Christians is to get them to understand that people don't
Hmm.
believe it because they don't think it's true and they don't think there's sufficient evidence to merit the claims. But the other thing is like it's not good. Like it
Hmm.
really baffles me that people want to worship a being that killed everything on the planet and said, I won't do that by water. Next time by fire. Like, and we're like, oh, like so that all really does bother me. And I guess it like you said earlier, like it bothers me that it doesn't bother people more. And
Hmm.
so I feel like also I feel like as a victim of religion and as a survivor and religious trauma and all that stuff, I feel like that I feel put on because I feel like if somebody told you, they had been essayed and now they've dedicated their life to ending relationship violence, you're not going to hit them with the why do you care so much? you're going to understand that they went through something that shaped them and unfortunately came with a lot of trauma, and they're trying to reduce that traumatic harm in the world. May not be what you dedicate your time to, but you can probably
Hmm.
understand why that's what motivates them. And I wish that especially more believers were at least pretended to be sympathetic to that motivation. Like, I'm not evil. Like, maybe I just went through something and I like think it was bad. I don't want other people to go through it.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it really tends to go to like social issues in, um, because I'm sick of the selfishness too, and these things matter, and I have to work hard at it because I'm the type of person who, let's just say, if you vote for certain candidates, I don't really see a need for you in my life, and I know that that's not always helpful, but I just have red lines, and
Yeah, I mean, and to the point where, and I didn't used to be like this until there was a very significant turn in one of the parties. And now it just feels like you just tried to run me over. Like, I don't understand why I should like feel the need to be nice to you, much less like keep you in my life. You have, um, and I'm not trying to say like you're a bad person. I don't believe in that. I believe that people. I understand that both parties are lying to their constituents, and being that we're not taught how to cite good sources, people are finding news shows that they like and blindly trusting because I could go off and read about what's actually going on, but reading's hard or something. I don't know. And I mean, a lot of people are just really poor and working three jobs, and they don't have time for it, and so they trust the people around them as to what they should do. I mean, there's a lot of that, and a growing number of that. Um, and as for the religion thing, me personally being so political, I'm trying to win people over more by critical thought. Um, what you know, my biggest fight is for religious freedom, and it's gonna be really hard for me to advocate for religious liberty if I'm saying to somebody that you shouldn't have your beliefs.
mm, sure,
Um,
sure.
my belief is that everybody should be free to do whatever they want. Um, if you want to believe silly things, I really do believe that it's like the downfall of humanity, and I wish you wouldn't. But if we could just agree that you have a right to be stupid, as long as you're not trying to drag me down with you, like I'm really at the point right now where I'll agree to that if it will just get you to stop trying to strip my rights.
The problem is, I don't think the religious institutions can do that. I think religious individuals, they're kind of happy to live and let live. It's the higher levels that they participate in that's the problem. And then the other thing is, I don't know the line between autonomy and victimhood. If, I hate to say this, but I would love a
Elaborate.
Christian. So if I had a Christian come to me and said, you know, I really love my Jesus, but I've been thinking about it, and I realized, like Wayne said, he had this conversation with one of his family members. Like,
Hmm.
it is the perfect tool of a con man, uh, you know. And I was really looking into the Bible, and I realized, yeah, a lot of the stuff that's in the Bible really isn't true. If they just did that, and then they said, but hope, meaning, and purpose, brunch on Sunday morning, whatever, like, fine. To me, that's autonomy. You're aware of the situation, you're aware of what's going on, you're informed, and you have like informed, I say informed consent, right? It's
Hmm.
informed consent. I think what we're dealing so much with so many religious people is uninformed consent. They've been the victims of indoctrination. They've been lied to. Now they're grown folks and they're insisting, no, this is my choice. This is what I love. This is what I want to do. Right. And they're 50 years old. So who am I to tell you that that isn't what you want to do? But it is hard for me because that's the thing that I wonder. I wonder if you were informed, would this be the thing you want to do? Because if you were informed and this wouldn't be the thing you want to do, then that's a problem. That means that these people in this institution are, you know, they've got a hold of you, right? And I don't, and again, that just becomes a thing where it's like I'm trying to check myself. I can't care more than they care. It's
No,
tough, it
and
hurts,
that's
but
where I
I
am
can't care
too. I
more than
mean,
they care.
that's generally where I am too, like trying to pull somebody out. Now, if there's somebody like I said earlier, if you want to help, like if somebody is doubting and you want to lend a helping
Yeah,
hand,
yeah,
I think it's you're going to find it more fruitful. And two, I mean, there's just going to be, there's going to be way less pushback. You're going to be able to move further faster. For people who want to be in that, like, I don't, again, for me personally, I don't care until, it's like Karen saying, like, why are you legislating your belief system? Right? And this is another thing where I don't think people are really like grasping, like the long, like what it looks like on the long end. So they're clapping for the Supreme Court that's giving them all these things, but I'm like, you understand they're Catholic, right? You understand like the Catholic Church has like the most structure. So I know that they assume that whatever their particular religion is, that, and they probably acknowledge that the one true religion only exists in their church, but for some reason that's the religion that's going to be carried out whenever we have this like religious theocracy that sweeps the land. But I kind of wish they would just like really see that, like, it's probably not going to fall in your favor. The odds just aren't there.
yeah. So what I think we've seen a lot of is and sort of unholy alliance between evangelicals and Catholics. And I think right now, in the interest of political power, they are showing a lot of political cohesion. So really
Right.
the Catholic Church, which actually used to be quite liberal. Like when I was growing up, Catholicism was liberal. It was cool. It was like serve the poor,
Yeah.
evolution's real, science is
Yeah.
good to go. Like
Yep.
knock yourself out.
Right.
Now Catholic power has moved far to the right. It's even, I think, a problem because most universities are quite liberal. Most students are young and quite liberal, but now the administration is super conservative. And I'm like, this is a ticking time bomb, an
I mean, it is,
absolute ticking
but
time
I
bomb.
mean, it's not even just the administration. People are mad at the Pope because he's too liberal.
Yeah. And so you have things where I think like the evangelicals have become far more anti-abortion than they used to be because that used to be a Catholic thing. But Catholics have become way more socially conservative. And that's like them leaning almost towards the evangelical. So now they've got this Christian right theocracy thing that which they think is great because this keeps the ants and the ants and the ants and the ants out of power. But what to your point, once they get this all set up and going, it's going to be right back to Ireland and the infighting, and it's not going to be good. The evangelicals are going to realize, oh yeah, they're Catholic. They think weird things. They don't really support us, and vice versa. So it's a problem.
Yeah. A lot of it is like the lack of critical thinking and the problem. I'm trying to like in my head or like even like listening to like what the people who are studying this for a living are saying, but the biggest issue is people are like willfully shutting down their critical thinking because they think they will be punished eternally. They are refusing to think things through. They're shutting down when you push them.
Yeah.
And this is
And like Crystal said, why wouldn't people want to progress? I think this is really important for us to think about.
No, I
They
mean,
have bad instincts. Like to me,
no, they have a book. They have a really old book. God wants things to be one way. God does not change.
that's
There,
exactly where I was going with it. That's exactly where I was
yeah,
going with
like
it. They can't change.
what is
Change is
progress?
bad.
Why would we would be progressing away from the way God wants it?
Exactly.
God already told us what
Exactly.
he wanted. He told us that
Exactly.
2000 years ago. There's no progress. Progress is sin. That's why you wouldn't want to
Exactly.
progress.
Exactly. Fear of losing power. Exactly.
Yeah. For yeah, and for the people that buy into the bullshit, yeah, it's all a power grab that they're and a lot of people don't understand that they're being played.
A lot of people don't understand that they're being played. That's a good closing statement for me. A lot of people don't understand why they're being played, and that's why I care so much. But yeah, no, I really just wanted to touch on this, and I want to show some support. Like I think whether it's political issues, whether it's social issues, whether it's being an atheist or free thinker or skeptic, you will find that as you find your voice and express your voice, people will start to hit you with this. Why do you care so much? And it is an attempt to silence you in a sense, and it's hard because it's usually when you say it, it's going to be a family, a friend, a coworker. It's going to be somebody in a position where it's going to make you feel a certain way, and you're not necessarily going to be able to speak out or act out how it makes you feel in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. So I wanted to show some solidarity and be like, yo, welcome to the club. This is what it's like to be in this club. This is how they hit us. It is a form of gaslighting. It is weird. It does in a sense minimize our experience and overlook the seriousness of the issues that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But I am trying to learn how to take it in stride and articulate why I care without expressing hostility at the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Maya, let the people know where you're at, where to
Um,
find you, and what you got going on this week.
yeah, I think this is the last thing I'm doing this week until our next show, which is going to be on Sunday. And God, I feel bad. I should have checked the calendar before I came on. But so every Sunday, I do a show that's called Bad Science Sunday, which is where we look at people that have come to conclusions badly. And
Badly, bad sources.
yes, and you know, we take a comedic approach, and by that I mean we drink and laugh and point, and we try to kind of uh, do disclaimers and on the bad thinking and what the scholarly consensus is with whoever our guest of the week is, um, and try to get people to perhaps think about how they got where they got to, um, and for the audience to maybe not make the same mistakes. And also part of it is letting people know what's going on, because a lot of the things that we do are actually like things that are like actively being talked about right now.
Yeah,
um,
topical.
Even the stuff that like what do you call it, yesterday we showcased a video that was 2 years old, but it was for the topic. It was just the best video on that topic that I could find. There are people, putting out videos probably today, but definitely in the past week on, the same subject. It's just people, people think crazy thoughts. And I don't know, hopefully in that maybe one day they, in their search for crazy stuff, they come across my channel and rethink their,
Rethink the craziness.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, y'all. I'm Pocket Locker 86. You can find me on YouTube. This week I'll probably just maybe do a random stream or two throughout the week, usually in the evenings. But this Sunday I'll be back in the afternoon, usually 3:30 p.m. Eastern, with my one black friend for Hot Program. Last Sunday I was out of town and he was having a baby, so we'll be back this week. Definitely join the Gather Gang. That's our virtual headquarters where we hang out, and definitely helps us build community online when we're not live. So thanks to PC for dropping that. Definitely come hang out and gather. We've got a Discord as well. So we'll see you over there. Thank you guys so much. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Black Free Thinkers.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Make sure you
everybody.
make sure you're registered to vote.
Make sure you're registered to vote. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks to all the chatters. And of course, thank you to the wonderful, wonderful mods. All right. We'll see you next time.